Hey everybody, we're back, and we got a very, very, very special guest with us on this episode of CNT Talking Tigers. Where we're gonna talk about Texas A&M game, and we're gonna talk about the Deep South oldest rivalry. But let's enter the Tiger Den. Then CNT Talking Tigers. Let's go.
This is CNT Talking Tigers. We're talking Auburn football. It's what we do. Welcome to the Tigers.
And you are now in the Tiger Den. Again, welcome to CNT Talking Tigers. We're talking Auburn football is what we do. We appreciate you all taking out the time to watch us on YouTube, CNT Talking Tigers. They're on YouTube, of course, to always, of course, follow us on CNT Talking Tigers on Instagram. Of course, I'm Courtney Chandler. There's my co-host, Tony Milford, and we have a very, very, very special guest with us this episode. Mike G from the War Rapport is joining us for this episode here on CNT Talking Tigers. So everybody give him a hand as you're watching at home. Appreciate Mr. Mike G coming on. Appreciate you, Mike G.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, fellas. It's been an interesting start to this Auburn football season. We're 4 games in. I feel like after last week, we've learned some things about the Tigers and who they may be going forward. But I know we're going to get into it. But hopefully for Hugh Freeze and his team, his squad, last week was a catalyst into finding out who they're going to be for the remainder of the season.
Gotcha. So we ain't going to delay it. We're going to go ahead and get into it because we got to talk about it. There it is, the final score from this past Saturday. Auburn 10, Texas A&M 27. Of course, we took a L. We 3-1. So let's first off, Mike G, man, we'll start you, and then I'll pass it on to Tony. What did you see on the field that, that was – we all saw a lot of things, but particularly what did you see on Saturday that was very alarming when you watch the game against Texas A&M?
Well, I don't know if anything was alarming, but it was definitely what I expected, right? I expected Texas A&M to get after Payton Thorne. So far, through up until that game, through 3 games, that was what was on tape. Blitz him, try to make him uncomfortable, try to force him into some bad decisions, and let the chips fall where they may. This program has been recruiting at a high level, Texas A&M, for years and years and years. They may have not had the results on the field necessarily, the same squad that missed the bowl game last year, but they've got 5-star athletes everywhere. Now, they picked up Bobby Petrino, and I expected them to try to get the ball to their offense a little bit more in this one, which is what they did. So what I saw them get after the quarterback, which was reflected in the pressure rate stats after the game. Payton Thorne was under a decent amount of pressure, but there were still opportunities there in spite of that pressure that Auburn was not able to take advantage of. I also saw, guys, a lack of an ability to be able to get the ball to your playmakers. Javaris Johnson and Jay Fair are the best and most consistent receivers on this team through 3 games. They had a total of 4 targets on Saturday. That can't happen, in any game moving forward. So to have only 2 total targets for each of those guys, I think is a profound mistake on their part. You have to get the ball to your playmakers in space and let them make plays for you. And if you can't do that, you're going to struggle to score points, which is what we saw on Saturday versus Texas A&M.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head, Mike G. Tony, what about you, man? What did you see?
Oh man, what I saw was a pathetic offensive performance. It was horrible. I remember I mentioned last week we would see where those guys that came to us from the portal, we would see if they were SEC ready. Payton Thorne was 6 for 12, 44 yards. That sounds like Georgia Tech Paul Johnson quarterback numbers. You know what I mean? I mean, come on, man. He was sacked 5 times. We got 3 starters that came to us through the portal, and I called them all out last week. The center, the right tackle, the left tackle. I asked, will you guys SEC caliber players? And you gave up 7 sacks. Every quarterback that played got sacked at least one time. Holden was in there for 7. He threw 7 passes. He was sacked. Robert threw 4 passes. He was sacked. Peyton threw 12 passes. He was sacked 5 times. So, we couldn't get anything going on in the air. Our leading receivers both caught the ball 3 times. Shane Hooks had 18 yards. Rivaldo Fairweather had 5. So the play calling didn't really lend his hand to the offense making plays either. Brian Battie was our leading rusher, 8 carries, 59 yards. Quez was right there with the same, about 9 carries, 53 yards. Even Battie was the lead. He had the most yards receiving. He had 23 yards.
Yeah, he did.
Our leading receiver had 23 yards. The leading receptor had 3 catches. That is not going to win big-time college football games in the SEC. We only had 14 first downs, but I'm gonna give it. The offense. It was a close game. You know what I'm saying? Defense did as much as it could for as long as it could. It was 6-3 at halftime. Once again, my boy Evan McPherson, he did what he could do. We give it opportunities. Alex McPherson, I love that. That young boy is gonna be a gem for us for years to come. On third down, man, we were 3 for 15. We couldn't stay on the field. Either we would hold. It either was a holding penalty on third down, or we just couldn't. Or we held on third down and backed ourselves up, or we held on third down and they declined and we just had to get off the field. We had 10 penalties for about 65 yards. It's terrible. We went for it on fourth down twice. We only got it once. We had 200 yards total. Running and receiving. We had 200 yards running and throwing and everything. We had 200 yards total. They had double that. They had the ball so much because we stayed off the field. Our defense could only hold up for so long. We only had a total of like 56 yards passing, guys. We had 144 on the ground, but Texas A&M had over 200 yards rushing. We did a decent job with the passing game. Connor was like 8 for 14, only 70 yards before he left out. So we was containing him. Max Johnson, him and they got in there and got loose a little bit. 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. Evan Stewart got us on a fairly long pass, 37-yard touchdown. Nia Smith was making plays. We couldn't contain the running game though. Le'Veon Moss had 15 for 97 and a touchdown. It was Amari Daniels broke off a 79-yard run to put him in scoring position. It was, the defense could only do so much. I didn't like the fact that they were 5 for 12 on third down. I would have liked them to have been a little, just a little less successful than that. But like I said, Eugene Asante, he had to do everything out there. He had to tackle. He had to make the tackles, score the touchdowns, load the bus, wrap an ankle, sell some popcorn. He had to do a little bit of everything. The offense out there, like they nose stopped up or something. I don't know I don't know what's wrong with them. But I was not impressed with what I seen offensively Saturday, and it's hopefully that open the eyes of what we need to do and what we don't need to do. If anybody's going to run the ball at quarterback, just let it be Robbie. If we're just going to commit to a running quarterback, to more of a read option game, just go ahead and put Robbie in there. Because that Peyton Thorne, that ain't going to get it. That might work against Sanford. That might work against Sanford. That might work against Sanford. But come on, man. You really think Peyton Thorne really finna be running like my boy Mike G said, them 5-star athletes, man. Them 5-star athletes. Peyton Thorne wasn't running like that at the Big Ten. Now you gonna come down here and run on Texas A&M? Now you gonna run on Georgia? You gonna run on Georgia Saturday with Peyton Thorne? That's gonna be our go-to. We can't go in there with the same game plan. Because if we go in there with the same game plan Saturday that I saw this past Saturday in College Station, it's going to be worse than 27-10.
Yeah, the cold runs for Thorne, I think, were the most concerning. It's just that can't be a game plan. And I think that's what most fans saw, guys, was if you're going to call runs, you've got the wrong quarterback in the game.
Wrong quarterback in.
Right, I expected them to utilize his arm more than anything, and they didn't get him into a flow early in the game throwing the ball. So that's definitely something that I think they're going to have to do, moving forward. Is if Payton Thorne is your guy, he's got to beat teams with his arm,
with his
right?
arm.
With his arm, right? And then get the ball to the playmakers and let them do the work with their legs. But I'm not sure that's going to be his game in the SEC.
It will not. He will not. He won't last, and the offense won't last. If our number one running threat, if we're gonna have design runs for a quarterback, and Payton Thorne is the design runner, that is not going to work. That is not. I mean, I don't even know why he thought that would work. And I mean, he's a lot. His football acumen is probably a lot higher than mine. Seeing how he's an SEC head coach and they pay him millions of dollars to make these decisions, but that does not negate the fact that I can have an opinion on said decisions. And man, those were horrible decisions, man. I would like to see Peyton in a drop back form. Like I said, if we're gonna have a threat of runs, just put Robbie in there. Let him hand it off a couple of times, I don't mind if we gonna run it, and there's a quarterback designed to run it. Just let it be Robbie. The boy, he's a dynamic runner. When given the opportunity, we ran it 8 times Saturday for 25 yards. That wasn't much, but I'd rather see Robbie with 11, 12, 13 carries than Payton Thorne any day.
Back, I agree. Just watching it's thinking, and I mentioned this a couple of times, but it just seemed like Payton Thorne was just uncomfortable. He didn't look like he was comfortable. I don't know, in the environment or the stage. He didn't look like he was like all the way there. And I agree. Like, you can't, if you're gonna just run, just stick to Robbie. Like, he's the running quarterback for the team, or he has the legs to do it. Just stick to it. And it showed when they took Payton out and they brought Robbie in. We were getting first down. We was moving the ball, and then of course something would happen, and then we would lose possession. I will say this: I didn't like our running game. It did look a little bit better, especially Jarquez Hunter, because I know I mentioned last week, Tony, that I was wondering was something going on. I didn't know if he was injured because he was just lacking production the 2 games that we did see him play before this one, but he did look a lot better. But yeah, the offense is overall this are gonna have to step it up. We had too many penalties on the offensive line, and that was, I think, also killing us as well. Was just the penalties that were just that we had.
Well, hear me out on some of the penalties. False starts, I get it, inexcusable. Whenever you see a hold, when you see a hold and you see the quarterback holding on to the ball too long, as particular when they're blitzing, you're going to see penalties. You're going to see holding penalties, right? Because they're trying to protect their quarterback. They're sending their guys after him. This a little known stat in the SEC is time to throw, right? The most successful quarterbacks in our league over the last 6 or 7 years have gotten the ball out of their hand in under 2.5 seconds. If you're holding the ball much longer than that at this level, you're going to have some problems. Usually means something broke down, or guys aren't open, or you're not reading the field fast enough. So, Payton Thorne had a time to throw that was about 3 seconds. And that may not sound like a lot to people, but that extra half second usually means that the defense is getting to you. I mean, these are elite athletes that Texas A&M was sending after Payton Thorne. So you're holding on to the ball, plays, you're under pressure. Now you got to escape the pressure. So you're leaving the pocket, which extends the play even more. And that's usually not a great thing for most offenses. So they've got to find out. It starts with what you're asking him to do. What are you asking Payton Thorne to do? Are you asking him to go out there and make quick reads and throw the ball? Or are you asking him to run an RPO style where he's reading the end and he's deciding whether to keep it or to pull it or to throw it? What are you asking him? The game plan has to make sense, right? And then once you have a play that makes sense, you got to execute. But if you're asking these guys to do something that is contrary to how you're going to be successful against defenses in this league, you're going to see penalties. I'm telling you, because you know what happens when DB gets beat. Sometimes instead of giving up the touchdown, they'll just hold.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this man, he beat me. I'm just gonna hold him because the hold or the pass interference is better than giving up a score.
Yeah.
Right.
For an offensive lineman, think back to one of the previous games, Payne Thorne that broke out to his left. Right, he left the pocket when the offensive lineman had contained. Right, and Dylan Wade had a choice in that. It was like, hey man, I can hold this guy. I can let my quarterback get hit because he definitely wasn't going to get away from the end.
Yeah.
So and then next thing you know, your quarterback's hurt. So they've got to call good plays, and you have to execute when you do call plays. I just don't think a lot of people are going to be very hard on Payne Thorne, guys. I just don't think that what they're asking him to do jives with a formula for success right now. And if they're going to call it that way, like you said, put Robbie in and let him cook, because this what we saw is not Payne Thorne's game, in my opinion.
Not at all.
Nope.
I don't think that's what he signed up to come here for.
I don't think this is what Thorne signed up for either.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think this is not what he signed up to come do.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I found out Payne Thorne was coming, that's not what I envisioned Payne Thorne doing. Is having design runs, multiple design runs in a game in the SEC. I really thought he was going to be, drop back, making passes, getting guys involved. The way it kind of looked in the beginning of the season, I thought, maybe this is the way we were going to go, and then all of a sudden we just totally went away from it. So I don't know. Maybe Hugh knows better than me. Maybe he's saving something for this Saturday, and it'll look better then. So hopefully that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Mike G, I want to ask you a specific question because I think you were at the press conference with Coach Freeze this week, and a question that was asked was, is Coach Freeze considering giving up play calling? And he kind of, when asked that, he's feeling like he's kind of torn between that, and I that's why I kind of want to go the next direction, because I know last week me and Tony may mention that he might need to start making the play calls. And do you think it's time to hand the play calls back over to Coach Freeze and Coach Montgomery, that's the voice in the booth and be over the quarterbacks? How do you feel about this?
Look, he's not got no influence on what they're doing. So first and foremost, you are an offensive head coach, which means that this team should take on your offensive personality. That's what I expect. That's what I expect from Brian Harsin. That's what we expected from Gus. Any guy whose mark is offense, you don't expect your team to struggle on that side of the ball. Yeah. That it is a little disappointing because he has produced 800-yard receivers almost every year at every stop. That's fairly prolific at Auburn. I mean, we have not had a lot of 800+ yard receivers in the history, of Auburn's offense, let alone 3,000-yard passers. We've only had 2 in the whole history of the program. So, ultimately what it boils down to is he's responsible for it no matter what. The end result he's responsible for. So, get on the same page with Philip Montgomery about what you guys are trying to do. And he's got to make a decision about whether he wants to. We hear this. They want to be. I've got to be more of a CEO, like whenever they come to Auburn, or does he have the time and the bandwidth to play half offensive coordinator as well? I don't think most fans care as long as they're scoring. Either way, he's responsible for what we see ultimately. So if Philip Montgomery isn't getting it done, get involved with him, man. Show him what you think. And it's tough. Here's where I struggle with this. If he takes over play calling, that spells the end for Philip Montgomery.
Yeah.
Right. Like, listen, man, once your head coach takes over play calling, like nobody who has head coaching aspirations wants to be a puppet coordinator. So I would say it's a little early maybe to say it's time for him to take over play calling, but certainly what we saw on Saturday, Auburn didn't lose because of the talent disparity between Auburn and Texas A&M. They lost because Texas A&M had a better game plan than Auburn did, period. Right. But the ones were good enough to win the game, and the opportunities were certainly there. And I think the defense played well enough to win that game as well, too. But you scored 3 points offensively, and you're not going to win many games at any level against anybody scoring only 3 points offensively.
I'm going to disagree with you on just one small thing, Mike G. their defensive line, their defensive front seven talent is better than the 5 blockers we have to go out there to trot out. I saw that Saturday was evident to me that center from Eastern Carolina, that right tackle from Western Kentucky, that left tackle from Tulsa are not SEC caliber offensive linemen. Those boys are gonna get whooped every week by better defensive linemen. Unless they got something in them that they didn't show Saturday, and for some reason they just didn't show it. I'm not sure if we have the offensive line to sustain the defense to block and sustain to give Peyton Thorne the time that he may need. It might be another long season. Saturday could have been a precursor of what's to come offensively via the offensive line. We've had troubles at the offensive line for the last 3, 4, 5 years. And these are some of the same, couple of the guys, these same guys that couldn't start in front of the guys who were terrible last year, who left. And all we did was add in 3 other guys from smaller schools that we didn't recruit the first go round.
Yeah, I would only add it starts with what you're asking them to do, right? And I think the problem was you're asking them to hold blocks for way too long on slow developing plays, so they look worse. Now, there is a talent disparity. I agree with you. There's a talent disparity between the offensive line and Texas A&M's defensive line, but that's not the reason why Auburn lost. I mean, he had on the throw to Jay Fair, he had a perfect pocket. The overthrow to Jay Fair, that was a perfect pocket. Robbie dropped back and threw what should have been a would-be touchdown pass to Shane Hooks with a perfect pocket. Like that offensive line provided enough opportunities for them to be successful, and there was a breakdown someplace where other people just did not make plays. So they weren't perfect, right? And they weren't perfect. And I agree with you. Like, listen, they certainly can improve from what we saw on Saturday, but they were definitely not the reason that we lost. So if you combine again, when they do provide a perfect pass, like I took a lot of heat, guys, years ago saying this about Bo, right? When people would talk about Bo and they would be like, nobody can be good without an offensive line. And I'm like, well, hear me out. When you're a great quarterback, there's a certain floor that you always make. And in that Super Bowl that the Chiefs lost, right? Patrick Mahomes was running for his life, and people were like, see, even Patrick Mahomes can't be good without an offensive line. I was like, what game were you guys watching? He was dropping dimes under the most pressure I've ever seen any quarterback in a Super Bowl, but people weren't making plays for him. There were a lot of dropped balls there. So if you're a quarterback, you go out and you make the plays that are there. And if Auburn had made the plays that were there, they would have been, I'm not saying they would have won, but they would have definitely been in that game in the fourth quarter. If you hit Jay Fair, what would have been a touchdown? Like a throw any quarterback at any level should make. Because they are providing good pockets at times. It's not consistent. It's not there yet. But I think it's a myriad of issues that's plaguing Auburn on offense with offensive line. I'm not even sure if that's the worst issue they have right now. Right, like it could definitely. It's got much room for improvement. I agree with you, but like I'm not sure offensive line is the worst issue they have right now. It starts with the coaches. It starts with the game plan and the play calling. And if you're gonna have these slow developing plays, good luck with this offense. To your point, good luck. You don't have the offensive line to execute that.
There you
go. Right.
There you go.
To execute that game plan. So come up with one that you can help the offensive line out by calling plays that gets the ball out of Peyton Thorne's hands fast. Once you hit enough of those passes, that D-line starts to back up and say, we can't come after him. And then they have to slow down defensively and you can let him cook. But what you're going to see moving forward is teams are not going to respect it until you prove you can do it. And now you've got 4 games worth of tape that says these guys aren't a serious threat through the air. And that's what they'll have to do if they're going to have a chance. I know we're going to talk about it later, Saturday against Georgia. You prove that you can throw the ball and hit quick passes and get the ball out of his hands quickly. And once you burn and you do that for a whole quarter, they've got to change what they thought about you defensively. And right when they make that change is when you switch it up on them again, and that's how you get the upper hand on a team that has better talent than you. Right? You have to out game plan the teams with better talent right now. I don't think Auburn doesn't want to hear about Hugh Freeze's 3-year plan to fix this while we're in season. We don't hear about that, bro. We don't hear about recruiting. We want to hear about how you're going to win games this season.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Because that was a winnable game on Saturday. That was a winnable. That wasn't some world beater team Auburn played on Saturday in Texas A&M. That was a winnable game.
And to be honest, it's a winnable game this coming Saturday.
Listen, I'm not sure about that, but
it's a winnable game. If Texas A&M was winnable, it could be done. If the play calling was more suited to the talent, I think offensively we could have a better chance Saturday against Georgia than we do. I'll put it that way.
Yeah,
we're gonna transition to Georgia in a second. Let me get some of these people who have dropped some comments here. We got our faithful watcher and listener Cam Bell.
Damn.
He said quarterback play is holding us back.
Hey, like I said last week, Cam, if the quarterback and the offensive line play well, we'll play well. If we don't get good at quarterback, offensive line play, it's gonna be a long game.
Yeah, I agree. Like, the SEC has turned into a league where dynamic quarterback play rules the day. If you don't have a dynamic quarterback, it's going to be hard to be successful in this league. The 3 yards in a cloud of dust type football that wins is no more. I think. Think about the dichotomy between Georgia's first championship and their second one, right? Like, Stetson Bennett didn't throw 15 passes in some of those games 2 years ago. But you know what he had to raise his game in year 2 because there was no way he was going to be able to do that again. And he threw for 4,500 yards in his encore season. Yeah. So if you're not stepping it up at quarterback, it's going to be really hard to win without an absolutely once in a generation defense.
Yeah.
Thanks. Rodney Williamson, how you doing down there in Bruton? War damn Eagle.
Bruton,
yeah,
Alabama.
War Eagle, Rodney.
Watching. He had a comment. He says Hugh needs to start calling plays before this season gets out of hand. I don't care if the offensive coordinator gets mad or not.
This goes back to a comment I made earlier, right? Like what people are seeing when it's a winnable game, when it's a team that you felt like you should have beat, that it's hard to stomach.
Yeah.
We lost because of game plan, play calling. I mean, I don't think anybody saw a team that they could not beat on Saturday. That was a winnable game. They just you scored 3 points, and there's a causality to not scoring, right? Like if Auburn puts up, let's say 21 points, you can maybe take a touchdown off the board for A&M. Right, because you're holding the ball longer. Maybe they have one less offensive possession because and what's crazy about this is they won time of possession by almost 5 minutes
with no turnovers.
Yeah, that's nuts. And then to only score 3 points, that's crazy.
Right. Rodney had one more comment. Offensive line is the backbone of the offense. I think we all agree with that.
Life gets easier when your offensive line plays well. If you don't, you have to be exceptional at the skill position. So what's my best example? It's been Alabama the last go back to 2020. Max Jones, who I think is a fairly mid quarterback, played behind one of the best offensive lines I've ever seen with dynamic skill positions. And he threw for almost 80% on the year and made New York as a Heisman finalist. The following year, Bryce Young, it was one of the biggest drop-offs I've ever seen in offensive line.
Oh, yeah.
Alabama's line was historically bad. It might have been the worst that Nick Saban has had since he's been at Alabama. And nobody talked about it because Bryce Young was so good.
Yeah,
he was amazing at quarterback. And this is what I talked about. Like when we talked about Bo Nix not having an offensive line, if he was that dude, we would have the baseline for production exceeds what your line play is because you're still hitting those open passes when they're there, right? So Bryce Young for 2 years carried that offense offensively. And now that they don't have them, look what Bama looks like. because they haven't fixed their line. Still have the same line issues that they had last year, but you don't have a generational talent at quarterback anymore. Milroe has been pretty mid, and they already suffered a loss, and they're like, oh, man, melt the statue and fire Saban and get Steele out of here, right? Like, they're panicking in Tuscaloosa right now because of it.
Tony wasn't gonna be on this show. It's Ole Miss had beat Alabama next week. Tony said he was not. He's gonna talk so much trash. He was gonna be on the show.
Oh man, I hear you. Listen, I would have had to take a week off if Auburn had lost to Cal. I talked way too much before that game, and their fans would have come after me. So I hear you.
All right, we're gonna have one more coming, then we're gonna transition to the Georgia game. Again from Cam, it says, to be honest, it's all mental with Thorne. If I'm not mistaken, Freeze says he's great in practice. And I've heard Coach Freeze say that a couple times.
If you've ever played golf, right, you know how it is. When you hit the practice range, everything feels good. You feel like you're Tiger Woods out there. Mm-hmm. And then you got to step on the first tee and it hits different. Right. And when you hit the field on Saturdays, it's got to what you do in practice has to translate to the field. I agree with that comment. I think I don't think it's about ability with Thorne. I think it's about game plan. I think it's about the mental aspect of it. But this is not conjecture. The head coach literally told us this in the preseason. He said, I named him the starter early because I felt like he was pressing. Now I wanted him to stop pressing. Right? You know what? Yeah, that tells me two things. Number one, it is 100% mental, and number two, they expected him to win the job when they brought him in.
Of course.
Yeah. Like I'm not saying he was handed the job. Yeah, I'm not saying he was handed the job, but I'm saying he definitely had a leg up on everybody. If you, in spite of you pressing, they still gave you the job before camp was over. Yikes, man. You got to make that work. That's not an opportunity that most quarterbacks get at this level. And once you start recruiting talent at a high level, you're definitely not getting that pass in camp.
Not at all.
All right. Well, we're going to transition to Georgia because we know that is the game on Saturday. Let me get the thing to come up here just a second. There we go. Yes, Auburn versus Georgia, Deep South oldest rivalry, game number 5, Saturday, 2:30, Jordan-Hare Stadium. So, guys, let's first off just talk about, what do we've mentioned it a couple times just in this episode, but what do we think will have to happen for Auburn we all have our predictions about this, and they might not be on the W, but it needs for Auburn to be competitive in this game. What needs to happen?
To be competitive, you've got to start fast. I think that is something that's plagued Auburn. I don't think they can survive a slow start in this one. Now, why? Well, I expect Georgia to adjust as the game goes on. And these types of games, it always gets harder for you offensively. Georgia has started slow all 4 games this season. And this is a team that has one of the easiest schedules in college football so far this year. So if I'm giving Auburn a shot, I'm saying they have to start fast. You need to score 10 to 14 points in the first quarter. Like, get 2 to 3 drives in the first quarter and score on at least 2 of them. And go out fast. They have not scored more than 7 points, guys, in the first quarter so far this year. In 4 first quarters, they've scored 7, 7, 3, and 0 to start the game. And a lot of those games have been within 1 score at halftime. I think they played Ball State or somebody, and I remember tuning in midway through the second quarter and thinking, what's going on? These guys are sleepwalking.
Yeah.
Right? So this is not the same team. Now, Carson Beck has thrown a majority of his passes within from 0 to 5 yards or completely behind the line of scrimmage, right? So the exact numbers are escaping me, so bear with me, but like he's thrown somewhere close to like 126 passes so far this year. 87 of them have been 10 yards or shorter, and over half of those have been behind the line of scrimmage. So what does that tell you about how they're running offense? Well, he's getting to his check down, man. If his first read isn't there, he's finding the dump off and he's getting the ball out of his hand because he's got one of the quickest times to throw in the conference as well, too. So he's not holding on to the ball very long. He's getting the ball out of his hands. He's getting the ball to his athletes, and he's letting them make the plays. That's what those dump offs are about. When you throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage, you just make sure you don't hold. You throw an accurate ball so that the athletes can turn and make a play with their athleticism. That's what Georgia's going to do. And so if you're Auburn, to have a chance in this one, you have to start fast offensively, and you have to take away the short game for Georgia. Got to take it away. You have to force Carson Beck to push the ball upfield where he is considerably less accurate. I think that's how you win this one.
Tony, what about you, man?
Man, just looking at Georgia from last week's point of view. Now Mike G's on point. They do start slow. They were behind maybe 14-3 to South Carolina at the half. Last week, at one point, it was a 7-7 ball game with UAB. At another point, it was a 2-score ball game. It was 28-14. Not the poo-poo on UAB, but Auburn should be a better football team than UAB. Auburn should be a better coach, but Trent Dilfer might be a hell of a coach. So I feel like we should have a better coaching staff. We should have better athletes. But they went in with a game plan. That quarterback completed 63% of his passes, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns against Georgia. He was only sacked one time. So I'm asking, like, is UAB's line better than ours, or are they getting the ball out a lot quicker than we were? Because he threw the ball 50-something times, but he only had 250 yards. Yep. Yeah. They didn't really run the ball much, only 86 yards. They had 20 first downs. They got 20 first downs. Georgia had 31. We only had 14 last week, whereas UAB got 20 on Georgia. So that was something I took from that. Now, on third down, Georgia was really great. They held them for 4 for 15. That was about what we were against Texas A&M, so that does concern me. UAB was 2 for 4 on fourth down, which is about what we are, 50%, which is nothing to write home about. They did give up about 60 yards to one individual, Mari Thomas, the wide receiver. He scored a touchdown. So that right there lends itself to what Mike G was talking about as far as getting the ball out fast, playing fast, getting the ball to your playmakers. Georgia, seems, maybe they are susceptible to that. They turned the ball over 3 times against UAB. If we can get 3 turnovers, we can make this a ball game. If we can get those same 3 turnovers. Georgia was efficient. They've been efficient all year on third downs. They're about 52%. We're right about 40. Last week now, Carson Beck, 22 for 32, 338, 3 touchdowns. He made, a few bigger plays this week. DeJuan Edwards, their leading rusher, 12 to 66, 2 touchdowns. Of course, the man, the machine, Brock Bowers, he's starting to come on. He was 9 for 120, 2 touchdowns. He's averaging about 64, 65 yards a game. He scored his first 2 touchdowns last week, so he might be getting hot at the wrong time for us. DeJuan Edwards averages about 92 yards per game. And Carson Beck's right about 296, basically 300 yards a game. Their leading receiver catches about 61 yards a game. That Rosemead Jack Saint. So they got some guys that make plays. But just like I said, just looking at the last game they played against UAB, there are things that we can do similar to what UAB presented to Georgia, and with better athletes, you feel you would hope we could yield better results. But Georgia averages about 500 yards per game, 330, about 337 in the air, about 160 yards on the ground. They average about 42 points. They're only giving up 11, whereas us, we score about 32 a game. We give up 16. We're about 370 a game, which is really, really pathetic. We average almost 200 yards rushing, but we only average 173 yards passing. Like I say, we seem like Paul Johnson at Georgia Tech. Georgia's got a stud on defense, Tyke Smith. He does it all for those boys. He leads the team in tackles. interceptions, PBUs. He's like the heart and soul. Everybody else is just making plays as a team.
Yep.
We have to be better than what we are. Like I said, Peyton Thorne, our passing game is really pathetic. He only averages 140 yards passing the game. We're what 3-1 now, and
Yeah.
he's thrown 4 touchdowns and 3 picks.
Yeah, a lot of that is inflated too by the Sanford game.
The Sanford game, you
Yep.
know what I mean?
You know,
The Sanford game. Quiz, like you said, we talked about your quiz. He only averages about 40 yards a game. The running game is getting his bearings. Everybody averages about 4.5, 5 yards a game. You know what I mean? We just have to be better overall on offense at everything we do. We haven't really committed to the run as much as I thought we would. I figured we'd be a little run and a play action heavy team out of the shotgun. That's what I thought I would see from Hugh Freeze. I haven't seen as much so far, but I've seen too much quarterback running, design quarterback running with the wrong quarterback. Saturday, we can't just line up and just smash them out. You know, we're gonna have to coach. We're gonna have to coach ourselves to a win.
Yeah.
And it's gonna have to be some quick hitting plays. And like Mike G said, we can start fast because Georgia's not particularly they're particularly a better second half team. If we can get up and just maintain, there's a possibility. But if we go out there with the same game plan that we went to especially what I saw last week, it's gonna look like last week.
Yeah. The middle of that Georgia defense looks
It's
soft, right? Like based on what Jacob Zeno was able to do for UAB versus Georgia. I mean, he got 125 yards dead smack in the middle of the field alone. So of that 250 that they had, half of it, 14 for 21, right from 10 yards or closer, right in the middle of the field. So the numbers appear to say that they're soft there, and that's where you attack them.
And that's where we need to see some Rivaldo, Fairweather, and some Fromm up the seam across the middle instead of throwing him balls behind the line of scrimmage like he's a receiver or somebody. I'm good on that. You know what I mean? He's a tight end. Let's put him out in space and let's work him across the middle on some linebackers. Because like Mike G said, those boys hadn't shown that they're the best in coverage. So they can be had over the middle. If Mike's seen it, if I'm seeing it, I know our coaches have to be seeing it.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a better game plan. Maybe last week showed you what we can and what we can't do. And maybe that'll lead itself to more of what we think we should be doing and how we should look. If we get the offense Saturday that I think best suits what our talent and our scheme with our personnel, I feel like we'll have a better chance against this Georgia team than we currently do running what we've been running.
I agree with both of you all. I like Mike G kind of started off, and then Tony, you also added. If they can get off, like I would be very happy if they start off this quarter, like the first quarter, with 3-0, 6-0, 7-0. Like get at least something on the board to get this game going. Because as we've seen, Georgia does start off very slow. If we can get the pace going, I think we'll have at least a fighting chance in this game. Yeah.
If we can get that crowd into it. With a 7-point lead, a 10-point lead in that first quarter, second going towards halftime. If we get that crowd roaring 10-3 at the half, you know what I'm saying, 10-0, something up in there. It can make a hell of a difference. Because boy, when that Jordan Hare get rocking, it don't matter what time it is. 2:30, 11 o'clock, 6:30, 7:30. 9:30. When Jordan Hare get rocking, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, you got to take advantage of home field, right, by actually getting the crowd into it, like you said.
Yeah, giving them something.
Giving them something. Make them a non-factor. Yeah.
Right. And we got to mention, this is Carson Beck's first SEC game. It's on the road.
Road game, first road
gotta
game.
break
Because
him
they
in.
played South Carolina already.
Oh, well, first.
And,
I'm
and
sorry.
that and that and that
Didn't they
might
play
have a lot.
South Carolina? But this
And
first
that
road
might have
game.
had a lot to do with PT1 last week. That boy had to go down there to College Station. That's the first time that thing really rumbled. You know that I damn Cal, they ain't really make no noise out there like that. You know what I mean? But that thing down there at College Station might have got shaking and quaking a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He might ain't seen too many like that. Penn State at 11 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning don't shake like that down there in College Station. You feel me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, hey, all right. So we talked about this game. We talked about keys to win. All right, it's time to give our prediction. All right, so who wants to go first on their prediction on tonight? Tony praying.
I go for we'll let Mike G slide in the middle, get in and we'll pull up the wheel. I'll pull this out. At the beginning of the season, I called for a 2-game skid for the Tigers right here. I said we would lose last week, and I said we would come back and lose this week. Well, when the season got started, my fandom took over, and I just felt like we were going to win last week because I was being a good fan, and we did. But for once again, how long we doing this show, Courtney? 3 seasons. This is our 3rd year, ain't it?
Yeah, 3rd season.
3rd season. And for the 3rd year in a row, I'm going to say it once again, we're going to lose to Georgia, okay? I'm going to keep it consistent, all right? We're going to lose. I want us to win. Lord knows I do. But I am I've been watching football a long time. I'm 42, and I've had a recollection of football since I was about 4 or 5. Okay. And I've seen many of Auburn teams. I've seen many of Georgia teams. And they might just be a little bit better than we are at the current moment. Now, our time is coming. But I don't know if it's right here, right now. Now, if we start fast, we turn them over, and we can score and get a lead, get the crowd into it, hey, we might can do something. But if everything just plays, if we just line up and just everybody just play football and everything stay equal, we probably gonna lose. Our defense is gonna do its job. I say it's gonna be and Georgia starts slow. 24-10 Georgia. I hate to see it.
All right. You got 24-10. I said we was gonna lose this game too. I did make mention that this is probably gonna be an L for us. You going 24-10. I'm gonna say 31-20. I say we might
we're gonna go 20 points.
Cool, 20 would be hopeful.
Hey, I'm telling you, man, we're gonna score 20.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be hopeful for the offense.
What is it?
I'm gonna bug a little bit on this one. I'm gonna go 24-17.
Okay.
I'm gonna give the Tigers 2 scores. Like, hear me out on this one, guys. Sometimes you need a game like Texas A&M to figure out what direction you want to go.
That's right.
So, I think that this team learned more about themselves in the loss to Texas A&M than they did in the win versus Samford. If you watch our show, Ike and I argued vigorously about this the Wednesday before. I said, I don't think we learned anything about Auburn versus Samford. I don't think any of that is real. I don't think they accomplished much because the game plan that they ran versus Samford is not something they were going to be able to do against most SEC schools.
And they found that out.
With Thorne running for like 100 yards and like this sparked the debate. I was like, that wasn't real, guys. Those yards aren't like real yards, right? Because
it's not tangible.
Yeah, people attacked me on social media. They were like, Mike, you don't think Payne Thorne's good for 5 yards? I said, no, nothing. He ran for negative 34 yards. So literally less than nothing.
I had more positive yards than Payne Thorne.
It was rough. And so against Georgia, I think now I don't know why they needed to learn that lesson because I knew that going in, but like if that's what it took for them to learn it, great. Now you can move forward to what actually does work. And I'm gonna give a little bit of a hot take here. If Payne Thorne craps the bed versus Georgia, that's it for him at Auburn in my book.
Oh yeah. I think so too.
Yeah. And I don't care that they're the #1 team in the country. That's life in the SEC.
Because we got that bye week coming up after them.
Right,
so if
right.
he stank on the bed, we going to find, hey,
prepare somebody else for the job, right? Because you brought him in as an experienced transfer in large part due to the fact that you expected him to hit the ground running a lot faster than what we've seen. 2 years of starting at the P5 level at a place like Michigan State, where you've gone into the big house, you've played Michigan in front of 100,000+ people who want you to lose. This is not supposed to be something that's new to Peyton Thorne. It's not. So the expectations to me for him as a transfer should be higher than the other two who have barely played at this level. And yes, I'm telling you, Robbie had one tumultuous year where he played with his shoulder hurt the whole season. Neither Robbie or Holden have been given a chance to get settled into a game for us to truly see what they can do with their arms. And Peyton Thorne, I think the experiment has to be over if he doesn't. They don't have to win, but he's got to look a lot better than what we saw against Texas A&M.
But they got to put him in a position to look better.
That's true, right?
If they're not giving Peyton Thorne the opportunity to be what he naturally is, which is a passer, not a run. We didn't like that. You can't find me one highlight on it when he was at Michigan State of him hauling ass running around. You know what I mean?
Now that is true.
That is not what we brought him for. Right. His junior year at Michigan State, or that first year, that was not what we saw. That was not what I was looking for. That was not what I was anticipating. That's not what I'm not looking for that. I'm not wanting that. I'm not yearning for that. I don't want that. That is not what I want. It's not the offense I want to see with Peyton Thorne at quarterback. Now, if that's the offense you just choose to run, that's the way you're going to go with another quarterback. You wasted his time and you wasted ours.
Should have got Casey Thompson. You're going to do that. He was still there in the portal.
Yeah, you could just stick Robbie back there, man, if that's what we're going to do.
Stay with Robbie.
Yeah. Just stay with Robbie, man.
Yeah.
Because if you ask me, if Peyton Thorne can't get there, put Holden in there. I want to see what Holden going to do.
And Toney does his walk. He walks off saying, "Put Holden in." I listen. I agree. I think this is do or die for Peyton Thorne. You know, if he doesn't play well in this game, there is a bye week, and I expect either Robbie or Holden to be in. I would really want to see Holden play. Is Peyton doesn't do well. I think Holden is the one we haven't seen a lot of. So far, besides maybe just a few plays. I know we saw him in the Missouri game last year, and he didn't look too good. But besides that, we really hadn't seen. Then we saw him in Texas A&M this past week, but we haven't had a large sample size of him. So I would really like to see if it doesn't work for Peyton Thorne. I'm still having hope that Peyton Thorne makes it work. But if it doesn't, I expect change to be happening.
But I don't want to see Holden in there with that same game plan from last week where he got to run the ball 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I don't want to see Holden in that. Yeah. Like I said, we going with a quarterback that's going to carry the ball double-digit times in a game. On design runs, I want it to be Robbie Ashford. Now we gonna play ball and the quarterback just happy. He's just it's a run here or there. Then hey, stick Holden in there or run. But man, if it's gonna be a run quarterback-centric offense, why not run Robbie? Like you said, Mike, they might have had to get last week to find out we don't never need to do that again.
Right.
Or put the baby go to Zach Blackerby. Say put Hank Brown in there.
Yeah, no. But I think by all reports, Holden had a really good camp. And one of the reasons why he didn't win the job was purely because of experience, right? He was the only quarterback in that room that had not started a game at this level. And so it would have been, if you're Hugh Freeze, there's a lot of things that go into this decision, right? Like if you start Peyton Thorne and he craps the bed and you have to go to Robbie, nobody really faults you for that, right? Mm-hmm. If you risk it on Robbie, it's harder the other way around because of what it took to get Peyton Thorne in here. Right, so I kind of understand why they went with Thorne first, but to me the leash just had to be short. And then you risk your credibility if you start holding over the other two and it doesn't look good, right? So
Yeah,
This
you
is
can't go to Holden first.
Yeah, this is the time of the season where if you're going to pivot, now's the time to pivot because
Right
here's
after
the deal.
the
If Thorne continues on the trajectory that he's on, he's not going to be the starting quarterback next year anyway, so you don't care if he leaves, right? But you're definitely going to lose one of the other two at the end of this season. Robbie or Holden is out of here. And if you're Robbie, you might even consider just stepping down a level so you can play immediately and get some tape because you're running out of eligibility, right? For Holden, you're not going to waste time at a program where they already don't think you're good enough and there's not a clear path to number one because Chris Todd, former Auburn quarterback Chris Todd told us this all the time, guys. He said, it doesn't matter if you won the Heisman. They're always trying to bring somebody in that's better than you. At Alabama, we saw Jalen Hurts lose his job to Tua in a national championship game. He had barely lost a game as a starter, and both those guys were good enough to be starting quarterbacks at the NFL level. Jalen Hurts might be the best player in the NFL right now, and he lost his job.
Whoa.
And he lost his job. No, hold on now. Like he was in the talk for MVP. We're talking about I was in the talk for MVP. Let's talk about this for a second.
Come on now, you're going too far, Mike. You're going too far.
You're doing the most. Look, I'm telling you. I mean, think about it. A guy who lost his job to a freshman somehow was good enough to be considered for the highest individual award at the pro level.
Yeah, once he's a great product of the system. The last two systems he's been in, he's been a great product of those systems. Yeah,
good for him. Thanks. You still got to go out there and make the throws. And so, all I'm saying is that coaches get this wrong all the time. I don't care that they get it wrong. I care how quickly they admit that they got it wrong and how quickly they pivot. Admit that you got it wrong and move on, man. But you can't lose while looking like you're moving backwards because this team managed 5 wins last year where they fired the coach midseason and they beat Texas A&M. And they put up more offense last year against Texas A&M's defense was historically good last year, guys. That's how bad their offense was. Their defense led the league in passing yards allowed. But by every metric, they had a championship defense last year. And Auburn found a way to score enough points to beat that team. And then you could only muster 3 versus this team offensively. Wow.
Are we supposed to be in a better situation?
Yeah. I don't care how much you think the talent needs improving. You have to be taking steps forward. And people seem to be forgetting that. Cadillac found a way to get offense out of this team. They put up 44-something on Mississippi State.
That's what I did.
Right? This same quarterback, Robbie, that everybody thinks can't throw, he threw for 370-something yards on LSU last year. True. There's a way to get it out of the guys that you have. This is why I don't like the message about Auburn being bereft of talent. At the one, they may not be very deep, but at the one, they're good enough to compete with most of the teams in this league.
Thanks.
Right? But you just have to come. You're not going to out-athlete anybody at this point, right? Like, Kirby and Saban, they can afford to have a bad game coaching, guys, because they got 5 stars everywhere. If you're Hugh Freeze, you can't afford, what he wants is the luxury to have a bad game coaching and have your players bail you out. And that's not why you make $6+ million a year.
We're not there yet, buddy.
Yeah, we're not there yet. So I want to see the results. That's how you get recruits to commit. If you can win with the guys that you have, because, he's getting a lot of praise in recruiting, but you still got to put proof of concept on the field or watch some of these guys.
Thanks, my boy. We hired you. We hired you for your offensive acumen. Yeah. We hired you for your coaching ability. Yeah, man.
Yeah. If you're Perry Thompson, you're watching closely.
Right.
And them boys ain't even getting the ball.
Your best receivers last week only had 2 targets apiece. Right? So the commitment to getting the ball to your playmakers has to be there on the field. There are going to be a lot of recruits at the game on Saturday, guys. There are going to be a lot of recruits. You don't have to win it, but it has to look competitive. You have to keep the crowd in it, and you have to keep the environment something where the recruits will look at it and say, man, you know why those boys didn't win? Because I'm not there yet. Wait till I get here. We're going to turn this thing around. But it can't be so far off They're like, I don't know, man. No one man can do it by himself.
Thanks.
So that's what I want to see. I want to see proof of concept on the field on Saturday. You can still move this program forward even if you lose.
Yeah, it's got to look better.
But it's got to look better.
It gotta look way better. Way better. We got a couple comments here before we wrap it all up here. Our man Rodney Williamson, he said, "Did y'all know the first mascot for Auburn was a black guy named Dabo? Georgia's first mascot was a billy goat. Did y'all know Auburn used to wear green jerseys? That I didn't know. Anybody else know that? Okay.
Dabo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. He did. He also said. He also said, "Put in the baby goat," and then he corrected, "Put in the baby goat." Like I said a few minutes ago.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are clamoring for something else. Guys, what I would say is, if you're a fan, and I try to stay as neutral as I can because we are media, but at the end of the day, give Peyton Thorne a chance.
Yeah.
The coaching has not helped him so far, I don't think. So to me, when Hugh Freeze got hired, hear me out. He said, "I do two things well: turn programs around quickly, and I develop quarterbacks." Now, the first, we'll see, right? I think you got to make a bowl game. You can't be struggling to make a bowl game. You turn a program around. Even Saban went. I think he went 6-7 in his first year, or 7-6. But he still managed the bowl game and then a championship in year two, which I don't know. But the second, the quarterback development, I think, is what everybody's watching, and I would argue that's part of what got Gus fired. When he brought Bo Nix in here and proclaimed that he would win championships, and then Bo looked like he did those first 2 years, I think people were done. Like, all right, we're done. This was supposed to be a can't miss talent. And seeing him thrive out in Oregon isn't helping the case either. He bet his job on Bo.
I believe in Bo too. I said, boy, by the time Bo get to his senior year, that boy gonna be a Heisman Trophy candidate, and he is. But I ain't know it was gonna be at Oregon.
Pump the brakes. Pump the brakes.
Tony know it was gonna be at Oregon. I know it was gonna be at Oregon.
The Pac-12 does not play defense at pass defense all. They had 8 3,000-yard passers in that league last year. 8.
Them boys can spin it.
Yeah, and he was not even the third best quarterback in terms of passing yards in that league last year. As a matter of fact, one of the ones that finished in front of him actually won the Heisman, and the guy in front of him right now I think is the front runner for the Heisman, and Michael Penix. Yeah, so I mean, yeah,
he was still a candidate last year. I ain't say he was gonna win it, but I said he'd be in it.
Yeah, listen, I mean, if you're a quarterback in that league, you should be in. I think you and I could go out to the Pac-Man and be Heisman candidates at quarterback, the way they play pass defense. But I'll tell you this though. I do think it says something for him that when conditions are ideal, he is able to perform. I think he's a very good quarterback.
Yeah.
In this league, unfortunately, very good sometimes is not good enough if you don't have the pieces around you, right? And the great quarterbacks, which is what kind of Gus sold us, right? When Bo came in, that he was the great quarterback, they do what Bryce Young did. In spite of all the challenges he had on his O-line, he still went out there and won game after game after game, right? And brought home a Heisman Trophy doing it. That first season in Alabama for him, to me, it's one of the best seasons I've ever seen from a quarterback under the circumstances. Wow. He carried that team offensively. And if you're Hugh Freeze, you need to bring in that kind of talent at quarterback if you expect to compete for championships in the playoff era.
Yeah.
Because you always, even if you make it, they expand the playoff next year, guys, but even if you make it, you will get exposed come playoff time when you hit. I mean, everybody can have a magical season. Look at TCU.
Make sure you bring in some of them first. Make sure you bring some of them first and second round receivers Bryce Young was throwing to also.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, he found the time to get it to him, and I'll remember they brought in a transfer from Ohio State was their best receiver one of those years, Jameson Williams.
Hey, first round pick.
Had to bring a guy in.
First round pick. Michi was on his way to a second round pick before he got hurt. So he went throwing the Larry Moe and Curly.
Man, I hear you. I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, right? The great ones get it done, and I think Hugh Freeze has to show Auburn fans that.
Yeah.
Bring in a truly great quarterback that will go in and perform under any circumstance and get a level of it done that you see at other programs. I think that is what Auburn fans want to see. They're tired of this being the quarterback desert. And every time Auburn is able to get a serviceable quarterback, it's championship time. Think about it. Jason Campbell, undefeated season. Cam Newton, championship. Nick Marshall, 3 seconds away.
Yeah.
Jarrett Stidham, they just missed the playoff. When Auburn finds a QB, we're talking championship. That's how well they've recruited, and the team has been around them during this time. Hugh Freeze has got to get this done, guys. He's got to be the guy that turns around the narrative about quarterbacks and the passing game at Auburn. He's got to be the guy. That's going to be his mark.
Because I tell you, I know who I'm happy. We moving forward. We got Hugh. Hugh's got to get his quarterback, which I think he might feel like he probably feels like he got his quarterback with the guy coming in next year. But boy, I know one somebody that would have came with a quarterback. Boy, I ain't gonna call no names. I know somebody that would have came with a quarterback. Woo, I ain't gonna call no names.
They've got to figure this out, man. They've got to get a guy in who can do the job and do the job well and keep you in most games. I mean, like I said, Bama had an unprecedented run at quarterback. I mean, one of the best we've ever seen, if you think about it. Between Hurts and Tua and then Mac and then Bryce, like yikes. All four
and then Mac Jones wasn't even that good, man. They won. Blake Sims wasn't really that good. Coco really wasn't that good. They won with the talent around them, and then they got exceptional talent at quarterback.
They figured it out.
With the rest of the super talent around them. But we gotta just. I mean, right now we just building, man. We ain't got that right now, but what we do have, we need to work with and make work better than what we have. We can't put the square peg in a round hole ain't working, man.
Yeah, that's facts. Look, Robbie Ashford has NFL talent. If you ask me, he's got an NFL like arm in terms of velocity. He's got the velocity to make every throw. He's got to work on his accuracy, certainly. But he's got NFL athleticism for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Take a guy like that and do what you did with Malik Willis. I think most Auburn fans will be super happy.
Yeah, what I thought, man. We're gonna go in there and get Robert the Malik Willis treatment, man.
Yeah. Right. Most fans will be happy with that. So I mean, the floor for passing yards was supposed to be around 2,800 yards with Peyton Thorne, and they're on track for maybe 1,600 this year. So they did 2,000 last year. So like I say, I understand you're not gonna have it all together, but it can't be moving backwards.
Right.
They've got to figure that out.
And those are facts, my guy. And those are absolute facts, man.
We did have one question from Cam here. He said, if we somehow win, do they think they rank us?
Yeah, 20.
Oh yeah.
Top 20. Yeah.
Yeah, we might be. We're gonna be somewhere between 20 and 25.
And that's what they deserve, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, I would not hop them into the top 15 after one win because I do think Georgia is susceptible. And this is not an invincible team Auburn is playing on Saturday, even though I do think they're light years ahead of where Auburn is at. And Carson Beck, like, you know what's clear at Georgia when you look at his passing chart? They're managing Carson Beck. They're not letting him make mistakes, man. Like, I mean, I think he's like 70% passing on the season or something, but they're giving him throws he can make, and they're managing him until they can turn him loose a little more. And I think if you're going to send Peyton Thorne out there, I'd like to see them do the same with him. Just manage him a little better.
Right.
Help him keep the ball out of harm's way, man, and give him throws that he can make, that he's supposed to be good at. And then if he can't, then once you've done that, if he can't do that, you can feel confident about moving to the next guy. But I think the coaches are struggling with this because they know that they failed him some, so they don't know how much of it is them and how much of it is him.
Yeah, they got to get that right. As far as that Carson Baker, I feel like Georgia could be had here within the next couple of weeks, but he's starting to find his rhythm a little bit. And by the end of the season, if he gets cooking and he gets rolling, it's gonna be hard to beat the next couple of years with him at quarterback. I tell you that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Well, hey, we come to the end of our show, but before we go, Mike G, we know you are a member of the War Rapport. So what's happening on you all's platform there? Y'all have a lot going on. So just tell us briefly what y'all have cooking up there on you all's platform.
Yeah, check us out on YouTube, at the War Report, every social media platform. If you haven't seen Fireside with the War Report, please go check out that content. We sat down with about 5 position groups so far before the season. We're not done with that series, so we'll be adding men's and women's basketball to Fireside with the War Report. Hopefully, we'll get Coach Johnny Harris to sit down with us, as well as some members of this year's men's basketball team to talk about their upcoming season and what they hope to accomplish. So, yeah, watch out for that content. We got lots of great stuff coming for you guys.
Awesome. Well, hey, we appreciate everybody taking out the time to check us out here on CNT Talking Tigers. Of course, on a different night, normally on Wednesday, but we're back. We're here on Thursday. We'll be back at our normal time on next week. Tony, any last final words, sir, before we close out?
Oh yeah, man. Of course, appreciate my man Mike G for coming out. Y'all check out the War Report. We appreciate everybody who tuned in. Cam Bell, we look forward to seeing you every week, my guy, our number one fan. We're gonna have to buy you something for Christmas, boy. But hey, like we say every week, man. Thank y'all for coming out. God bless you. Good night.
War Eagle.
War Eagle.
War Eagle, baby.